Are you ready to transform your music classroom into a dynamic, student-centered space? In this episode, Pass the Baton's own Kathryn Finch and Theresa Hoover will discuss back-to-school strategies to empower your students, ignite their passion, and set the stage for a year of musical growth and achievement. Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're so glad that you're with us today. So, Kathryn, this is the first episode of season 4. Yay! It's really neat to think back to when we first started this podcast and how far it's come, and just, it's been wonderful. So if anyone listening has not listened to the first 71 episodes of the podcast, you've got some work to do.
Yeah.
But we thought it would be a good way to start this season and start this back to school season, thinking about what we can do in the classroom to create an environment where the students can feel empowered. We thought that would just be something that would be helpful for people. And it's always good just to think through and hear also what other people are doing at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah. I mean, this is you're setting the tone as kids are coming in and they're starting in your classroom. And so to really, from day one, foster that culture that you want, that empowering culture, that, just doing the things you're going to do and get all those expectations out there so that everybody knows and feels comfortable in the classroom.
Right. And, we are obviously very strong believers in creating that environment where the students feel empowered, because it increases the engagement in the classroom. It increases the motivation that the students feel for learning, for music making, and it's going to increase their confidence. So we think that you're going to really enjoy this episode and hopefully get some good ideas that you can implement in your classroom. All right. Well, before we get to the interview, do you feel like you're drowning in lesson plans and wish that you had a musical support system in your corner? Well, grab your favorite mug, because we have just the thing for you, and that's the Pass the Baton Coffee Club.
For less than the cost of that fancy latte, you'll unlock a treasure trove of free resources. Get invited to our monthly planning parties, think virtual coffee break with amazing lesson ideas, and score sweet discounts on music education goodies in our store.
Or if you just want to lend a hand to the Pass the Baton mission of empowering music teachers and music students, you can become a supporter, only $2 a month.
Think of it as a way to fuel your passion, elevate your teaching, and connect with a vibrant community of music educators.
So be sure to check out the link. It's in the show notes. You can learn more and you can join the coffee club today. You deserve it.
All right. So now I guess it would probably be good, Theresa, to talk about, why the importance of empowerment in the music classroom. So, I guess we should talk about engagement and empowerment and what the difference is.
Yeah. I guess for the longest time, I remember as a new teacher thinking that engagement was the goal, because that meant that students were doing things in my classroom and not just sitting there like lumps. Right. And I think we can all probably agree that that's a good goal when we see the kids actively engaged. But when we started doing this work with Pass the Baton, that's when we really shifted from engagement being great, but also not quite enough. That's when we wanted the students to move to being empowered. And when we think about the word empowered, we're thinking about someone having ownership of what they're doing. So not only are they doing the thing, are they making the music, but they're feeling ownership over what they're making. So within the context of music, that can look like a lot of different things. We talk about the 6 qualities of an empowered music student, that they have a voice and they feel like they have choices, that the students are creating and not just consuming and recreating music. The students have the opportunity to connect and collaborate. They can ask questions, and they can then come to a point where they really are taking ownership. So when we look at those 6 qualities, that's everything from, do the students have a say in what music they're singing and playing and listening to? Who's making the decisions about how the music is performed and who's making the different artistic and musical decisions? Do the students have the opportunity to connect with classmates in other schools or other classes in your school? Do they have the opportunity to connect with professionals, things like that? So there's a lot of places in the music room where we really can create that environment so the students do feel empowered.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can really kind of just start with like, what decisions am I making that I could maybe let my kids do, right?
Yeah.
Or and listening. What when I am setting these expectations and we're doing these routines and things, and kids start to really know what to do, when can I take a step back and say, oh, we could have a student leader do that, or you know, who would volunteer today would like to lead warm-ups or whatever it is. But yeah, what decision am I making and when can I kind of step away?
Absolutely. And then the next thing is, when are we giving kids the opportunity to share what they are interested in, what they want to learn? How often do we ask students, what do you want to learn? I think sometimes we're afraid that they're going to say nothing. but but as Kathryn just said, if you really listen to them and you really allow them the space to share and to think about what they want to learn, I think we can learn a lot from that, which is going to make the classroom experience even more meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, I know when and this time of the year, first of all, as this is the time of year that to ask those things, right? Like, let's just set the stage. What do you want to do? I'm going to write them down on a Google Doc or whatever it is. And then I'm going to maybe even print it out and put it on the board in front of me. So when I'm planning, I can integrate some of those things into what we're doing. But also, like, you go down the rabbit hole and you learn, like you said, you learn some things, but you also tell me more about that. You want video games and music.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? You know, and
Yeah.
there very well might be 3 or 4 things in there that you could do that initially you're like, we're not a video game, right? But like if you really delve into it, you could probably find some really meaningful things that you could do with the kids and would make them feel heard and excited about.
Right. And when you're thinking about kind of the why behind this, a lot of it, I come back to the book by Daniel Pink. We talk about this one a lot, Drive, right? What motivates people? Well, they're motivated when they have autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of it. So when they're able to say, like, I think I want to learn this, or I have a voice and I want to go in this direction, that's going to be intrinsically motivating, which is what we want, right? We shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
doing the whole, oh, they'll do it if I reward them. No, let's see if we can foster that intrinsic motivation for music, which then is going to turn into this love for music, and our ultimate goal, lifelong musicians, which I will like pause and preface to say, I don't mean that I want all of the students to be professional musicians. That's not that's not necessary. We don't need it. But I would love all of my students to feel like that they are musical, and to feel
Mm-hmm.
like they can contribute musically or make music in a way that is appropriate for them and makes them happy, and all of those things.
Yeah. And I think when I started to do more of this in my classroom, I mean, kids would come back from the weekend and be like, I got on GarageBand and I made 2 more songs, or right. You start to see it get outside of the 4 walls of your classroom, which is wonderful. Right. And then
Yeah.
the kids see themselves as a composer, or as, they're making a podcast, but they needed an intro and they weren't afraid to go to the DAW and make music
Yeah.
for it, right. Yeah.
That's the special stuff. Okay, so let's talk about, beginning of the school year, right? So here we are, we're getting ready for the new school year, or maybe we're just a little bit in and we're still kind of, getting things set up. One of the first things that we're going to suggest is thinking about the environment, the classroom, right? We want it to be a welcoming environment. We want it to be positive. We want it to be inclusive. And the biggest thing is students should see themselves in that space, right? Ideally, it shouldn't feel like my space as the teacher's classroom, but it should be ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's our music room. It's our, our band room, our choir room, whatever the fact is, it's ours.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I started to really think about that, it was changing up composer posters, right? I used to have one wall of like only and all classical composers, and they are wonderful and kids should know about them. Absolutely. But they're not the only musicians
No.
and composers they should know. So I started to kind of vary that. And I'm trying to think, and just like seating, right? I got some different kinds of seating for different
Yes.
situations in the room where, well, yeah, that would be comfortable. Or if we're breaking out into small groups, they could sit in different ways, like in stools or in well, like rocking chair things or whatever you have available to you. But
Yeah. And I found that even being able to hang up pictures of my students being musical
mm,
helped with that too, right?
mhm,
Whether it was pictures I had from last year or, things that we did during the very beginning of the year, but just to be able to be like, this is our space, things that would reflect their interests, not just my interests. Now,
mhm.
that's not to say that you shouldn't have some personality as well, right? I would still always be telling my students, like, oh, here are some of my interests, but I want to know about yours. And let's see how we can reflect that in the music room. So if that means putting up, some popular posters or things like that, that's okay, because it's all music and it's all valuable.
Yeah. I think too, like I in elementary music, like I have a lot of children's books that also can just show a lot of different diversity just by having different books out, right? So that kind of can be helpful, or just books that kids love, right?
Yeah.
Is a nice way to connect too. So
Yep. And you can also think about in the classroom what elements of the layout or the decoration or any of that can students help with. And obviously this is going to depend on the age of your kids, right? If you're teaching kindergarten, first grade, you're probably not going to have them helping with decorating. Maybe you will, I don't know. But do you have a group of students that could create a bulletin board for you? When I was working in the middle school, I asked the kids, like, what do we need? Like, what are the important spaces that we need? What are some things that are going to help us here? And they said, oh, well, it'll be really great if we had a spot for when we're working on our theory worksheets, we don't have to sit in our chairs. Okay, let's figure out how to make that happen. One school we had like a little recording studio. I remember you did that as well. And I
oh
think that was a
yeah.
that was a suggestion from the kids, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that was, yeah. And the green screen. I mean, I still
Oh
have my
yeah.
green screen, and that was yeah, they
Mhm.
wanted a green screen.
Yeah. And
That was
even,
just fabric from the store on the clearance
yeah,
rack. Yeah.
we were talking, you and I, just earlier today, Kathryn, you were showing me the bulletin board that you're getting ready to put up, and how some elements of it were created by the students. And you're thinking
Yep.
about, like, how can I incorporate more student work on the bulletin board? Just
Yeah.
little things like that.
Even you saying, letting them bring in pictures of them in shows or whatever. Cause I know I have a lot of kids who are in um theater things, or piano lessons or all kinds of things. So yeah, I think I've got a space in my head where I might just, and my husband is in Les Miserables. So I think
Oh,
I might
cool.
share like, oh, but then make that start to be a space for like, bring in a picture of you and we'll put it up there and
Yeah.
tell us about it. And, like, that's really cool.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then finally, just thinking about the space, consider a student center. We've talked about it before. We've got some resources for the student center and the coffee club. If you're part of that, be sure to check it out. But just a space in the classroom where students can get what they need when they need it.
Yeah.
Like, it's that simple. So they don't have to constantly ask you, can I have a pencil? Can I use scissors? Can I, like, the things that they need on a regular basis? In my classroom, it was always rubber band for their violin shoulder rest, things
Yeah.
like that. Where can we, what can we put in the classroom that students can access what they need when they need it? So
Yep. For me,
again,
it's
oh God.
Band-Aids,
Oh,
right?
geez. Yeah.
Band-Aids and Kleenex. Yes. But
Yep.
yeah, and I'm already starting to put my room together, and I don't have to think tons about it, because when I'm moving things around, if I pick up clipboards or, look, this is something the kids can use, and you just start kind of piling it in one place, it kind of just
Yeah.
builds itself, right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So first thing to think about is the environment and how you are making sure that everyone is seen in that environment. Then also think about, beginning of the school year, it's really important that you build that rapport and you build those relationships as soon as possible. And not only with your students, student teacher relationships, but also student to student, making sure that they have a chance to get to know each other. Um, you've probably heard it said 100 times, make sure to say their names and be sure to say them correctly, and whatever you need to do to make that happen. For a while, people were using video to have kids like introduce themselves on videos and then practice the names. That's a great way to do it.
Yep.
Making notes for yourself, but building those relationships right away.
Yep. I know, again, if you think elementary, like if you ask a lot of classroom teachers, kindergarten, the really, really new students will put little name tags on them for that day that you get them to, so you can sit there and, maybe even snag pictures of them so you can look at that
Mhm.
later. something else I was going to say too. Oh, yeah, it left me.
As you were talking, I was just thinking, I have a video that I'll make sure I link in the show notes. It's how to make name tags for your music stands. If you're teaching an ensemble that have music stands, it's the kind of name tag that you like fold over the top of the stand and it has the kid's name on either side. I'll put a link to that video because that for me was such a help. You had maybe 50 kids in front of you behind music stands. If I could just have their names there and then make it a point to say the name every single time I interacted with the child. And eventually, you get there. And the kids feel really good about just hearing their name,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
we all do. We feel good
Yeah.
when we hear our names being said out loud. So thinking about how you can learn names quickly, talk to the kids. Yeah.
And for me too, I start a lot of for the elementary, I start a lot of those name games. And partly because when I have to know 460 kids' names,
Mhm.
over the summer, my summer brain can't. I need practice. So I love having prepared, like maybe for the first couple of days, a prepared seating chart, because then again it's like, oh, I'm assigning them a place, so that's also helping me see name and face. But then when
Mhm.
we do like a singing game or some kind of name game, we're repeating their names over and over again, and on the
Right.
first day they're hearing their name.
Yeah.
So those are also great ways for me to be like, oh yes, face Teresa, got it.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And as we said before too, it's also good for the students to make sure they know each other's names in in the self-contained, not self-contained, but yeah, I guess classrooms where, the fourth grade class travels together to everything. They're going to learn each other's names pretty quickly. But if you have classes that are mixed, if you maybe don't
Yep.
see them with their homeroom, that's important. I always try on the first day of school to have some opportunities for every kid to talk, whether
Yeah.
that's just a think, pair, share, or they're in small groups or they're talking out loud. But I want every student to have the opportunity to talk and just to share. And it doesn't even have to be super formal. It could just be a, um, you know, is a hot dog a taco? Like you could just do one of those silly little things, but give them a chance to talk and to share, get to know the classmates, try to mix it up. But really, even on the first day, maybe even especially on the first day, give them those opportunities so that everybody's feeling welcome. And I think sometimes even those small group ones are better because you don't know who your shy students are. You don't know your
Mhm.
introverts yet, right? So if they have just a group of 3 that they're talking to, that might feel a little less scary on the first day of school, and then you can hop around from group to group to interact with the students.
Yeah. As I was thinking too, another thing that to get kids talking and also to get kids talking would be the developing expectations together, right? Who
Yes,
remembers
yes.
how we should line up, or why should we line up this way, or and just letting them have talking time, maybe even in small groups too, but also just to share out so you don't have to sit there and lecture the entire time, because that's we want to hear it from them, right?
Right.
Multiple times.
Yes,
What the
nobody wants to sit
expectations
there and
are.
be lectured at, right?
No.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can work together with the students, and it's sometimes fun to hear them describe it, right? To hear them
Yes.
describe what the expectation is. I remember when I was working with the middle school, I had to tell them over and over again, like, make your expectation a positive, like what we should do, because they kept wanting to say all the things we shouldn't do. Like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
frame it. How do you frame that positively? And they think, well, always be kind. I'm like, okay, that works. Always be
Yeah.
kind. I love it because that
Yeah.
encompasses so many things. But it was a good opportunity for them to kind of have a say in how they thought things should go.
Hmm. And for many expectations, they're going to go about the same way, right? But
Right.
for them to generate it and feel like they had a say in it is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, first day, you're thinking about the environment. You're building that rapport, building the relationships. You're helping working with the students to establish expectations, and you're really thinking about how you can foster that sense of community within the music room.
Hmm.
So as we kind of keep thinking about the first couple days and weeks of school, going back to those qualities of the empowered music student, we talk about voice and choice often on this podcast.
Hmm.
Do students feel like they have a voice? Can they talk about what they're interested? Can they share their ideas? Can they share their thoughts? And then do they have choices in what they're going to be doing in the music classroom? That's a great way to foster that autonomy and help them move towards having some ownership over what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking, part of the intrinsic motivation is also so autonomy, but also that purpose, mastery,
Yeah.
and purpose. But for
Yeah.
purpose, just like if if I'm voicing something and I'm connecting to something, then that purpose is going to be there too, which is
Right.
can make the experience stronger too.
Right. And at the beginning of the year, you might start with small things, right? Maybe it's should we sing this song or should we sing this song, and let the students share which one they prefer. You can start small and then gradually be building up to the point of like, hey, what do you think we should sing today, or something to that point. But you want to start small, and again, start on the first day. It doesn't I don't think you have to wait for some of those choices to be what you do. Whether they're selecting a warm-up game to do, Kathryn, maybe you have two different name games and we can decide
Right.
like which name
Yep.
game should we play today.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be anything big and huge that you start with, but ideally you're going to be moving throughout the year to a place where the students really have a lot more choice, instead of just going with pre-selected options. But it's okay to start there.
Well, and I've also on the first day kind of opened it up to the big question too of like, what would you like to learn in third grade? Right.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of like recorders, ukuleles, and so, but you write the things down and you get, those kinds of things. But then you also just get like, remember the game we played, the singing game, and just the things that they like to do. And it just feels like a big question. But you're really just writing down things that interest them, what they've said, and then you're
Yeah.
just going back and referencing those when you can and pulling them back out. And we're like, remember when we said we wanted to play recorders? Today's the day, or we're ordering
Yeah.
them today, just
Well, I can
so
picture that being the
her.
perfect like last 5 minutes of class, and we managed to finish early. Oh, I remember you said you loved this this
Right.
game from 2 years ago. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with all of that, the students say, I want to learn how to play Taylor Swift song on the ukulele. You might not at first be able to like comprehend what that's going to look like. And that's
Right.
okay.
It
Right.
is. Yeah.
And I think with a lot of these things, when you were talking about giving students this voice and choice, you might not know. You might have a vague idea of where we're starting, but not know what the end point is. And that's not a bad thing. I think as teachers, we are convinced that we have to have an exact plan and it has to go exactly to plan until the very last moment, then we could do the next thing. But that's not always the case. There can be
Yeah.
times in the classroom where you just roll with it and see what happens.
I had a third grader who wanted to do video games in music class. And I'm in my head, I'm like, I don't know how we would do that, but I wrote it down. And then I was like, by the end of the music of the third grade year, it was like, oh, we did, a musication YouTube thing that's kind of a video game. And we did like this recorder thing with an app that felt very much like a recorder game. And like we did do things. I just had to make the connection. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, voice and choice, very, very important. But creativity. Oh my goodness. We teach music. We want to make sure that there's those opportunities for students to really create and to tap into their creative sides, which means they're not always just recreating or doing things exactly how you've told them to do it, but they're having that opportunity to make the musical decisions, to think like a musician, and to just try things and experiment. That's how we learn, is we do those experiments.
yeah.
And I also, try to encourage myself and anyone I talk to, think about how they could do that also during that first day or that first week of school.
Yeah.
What kind of opportunities do they have? Even if it's just a really simple improvisation game where, we're echoing things back and forth, and then I say, okay, this time do something different. Just getting them thinking like, oh, I'm not always going to be told what to do. In music class, sometimes I'm going to get to make my own musical decisions.
Yeah. I found that after COVID, I mean, it's been a couple of years, but like everybody's kind of, at least in my classroom, we've like re discovered the joy of being together in small groups and
Yeah.
creating and working together, like, because we couldn't do that for so long. And so
Mhm.
to be able to sit in a circle and come up with a drum pattern, and then when it's
Yeah.
our turn, our group gets to play by themselves, is like a big deal and really fun, right? And they get to
Yes.
create. And yeah, so rediscovering all those fun things from that hasn't gotten old yet, because it's
Oh,
not, right? It's
yeah.
fun to do those things.
Yeah. And I think again, if you start doing it at the beginning of the year, it's just what we do. It's what we do here in music, and we have fun and we enjoy it, and then you can continue to build upon it. And the same with like the collaboration piece, giving kids the opportunity to work together when it's appropriate for them to work together, or at least giving them the option to work with a buddy or to work with a small group when they can, because music isn't meant to be done in a silo. It can be. We can
Mhm.
enjoy music by ourselves, but there's a lot of music making that can be really great when we do it with others.
And and I think with that, like, we know that sometimes it's inevitable that there's going to be conflict. But
Mhm.
I think if you as the teacher have some teach them some strategies. I know the three that I always tend to go to is rock, paper, scissors. Is
Yeah.
there, if they're going to answer, can we just, are we playing drums, or are we playing rhythm sticks? Let's rock, paper, scissors and figure it out, right? Or one is think win-win. Like, can we combine your idea and my idea and put it together? And then the
Yeah.
last one is be kind, or anyways, the idea of like, you're gonna just, I'm Teresa, we're gonna go with yours today. Yesterday at
Mhm.
recess we did mine, we're gonna do yours. Choose kind.
Yep.
Choose kind.
Yeah.
And to teach them those strategies, and then praise kids when they're like, whoa, we're fighting, let's rock, paper, scissors, and then praise
Yeah.
somebody for using that strategy. But
Mhm.
yeah, they need those things, but those things can really help them when they are learning to collaborate together.
Yeah. I imagine at the beginning of the year with your older students, you could probably just say, like, hey, what do we do if there's a disagreement? And they
Right.
can probably rattle them off, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's a good thing. So yeah. All right. So when you're thinking about setting up your lessons, um, you know, we're encouraging you just to think about from the planning point, identifying where the students can have some voice and where they can have some choice. Just start with those two things. Um, Look through your lesson plan and just kind of think like, oh, okay, here I could give them some choice. Here they can talk about this. Just start with that. Um, and
Teresa,
then
let me interrupt you for a second.
yes,
Yeah, because I think that's exactly what it is. Like, you can pull out, like, what did I do that really went well last year, or whatever, what do I want to
Mhm.
do to get them started? And then just from looking at that, it's like you said, just looking in there, you're making little switches there. So you're
Yes.
not like, oh, I can't do what I've done before. No, of course you can. And then there's good things that you've done, so don't throw it all out, but just like you
Yes.
said, just pick the little things. Oh, there could be choice there could be voice there.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because right, we're not
No,
saying it reinvent the wheel.
no, and I think you said it clearly, but I feel so passionate about it. I was like, I really want to make sure we understand that. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And then with that, either looking at what you did last year and what you're going to do this year, or thinking about how much you're doing and how much the students are doing, right? Where is that balance of, I'm going to do these parts, the students are going to do these parts. If you find that it's mostly you are doing the doing, where is there room for some shift to happen?
Yep. Yeah. Which again, what we've talked about before, instead of stating all the expectations, you could give them some more talk time and some more time to have conversation by asking them. Right.
Right.
So it's not these like throw away everything you do, or I can't do these things on the first day. No, we need to do those things on the first day. But like, how can we just shift it so that the kids experience, the learner experience, is rich in doing and owning work?
Absolutely. Yep. And don't be afraid to ask the kids what they need.
Yeah.
What do
They'll,
you need next? What do you think we should do next? What would you like to do next?
yeah.
That's
Yes, they are not shy of. I mean, I guess at first, if you haven't asked that question, they might be like, but if you keep asking that question, you're going to start to get some answers. So,
right. Right. And that kind of goes with the next thing I was going to say anyways, was just think about, where do the students have opportunities to reflect and to give feedback to themselves, give feedback to their peers, and just be part of that process. Because as teachers, we're reflecting all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get to the end of the lesson and we're already thinking like, okay, here's how I might do this differently next time. Here's how I'm going to do this. We are doing that. And we know how much we can grow as a result of said reflection. But where do the students get the opportunity to do that? Where are they reflecting on what they've done so far, what they want to do? And again, self and peer feedback, it's so valuable. You might have to start with scaffolding that too, right? Start with a sentence prompt like, I really liked, or, encouraging students to give suggestions to their peers or compliments, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say another one could be like, I wonder if we did this, but yeah, and also just when you're lining them up, and again, like I'm thinking elementary, but when we're lining it up, and sometimes like it just is not perfect magic, right? The next class isn't there or whatever, but those are great times to ask, like, gosh, how did you think today went? Or what's one thing you'll remember today? Or I don't know, you'll get a lot from just even those times.
Yeah. So when we wrote Pass the Baton, at the end of each chapter, we included a section called Things to Try Tomorrow. And we tried to think of just very small, actionable items that you could really and truly do the next day. Because I realized some of the stuff that we talk about is, a little bit more of a work in progress. It takes a little more time to implement, but something to try tomorrow the idea is that it's actionable and something you can really try. And people seem to really like that. We've gotten a lot of very positive feedback on that. So to offer you something to try tomorrow, it's really just a question I want you to ask yourself, and just think, what decisions am I making that the students could be making? Mm-hmm. And it would be great if you could ask yourself this question tomorrow, and then again the next day, and the next day.
Yep. When you're driving to work, when you're driving home, when you're watching the kids line up, when you're at lunch, right? And it's amazing how much just asking the question, you'll start to see some things. It will happen.
Yes.
You could ask the coworker down the hallway, what have you done? But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one little question, what decisions am I making that the students could be making?
Yep.
So, all right. So hopefully in this episode, we've been able to give you some ideas to think about how to start the school year by fostering that, that environment where the students are going to be able to feel empowered, building in the relationships, creating that environment, setting the expectations, thinking about student voice and choice, thinking about where you can infuse some creativity and opportunities for collaboration, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to take some experimentation. Not everything you try will be a home run.
Nope. But it's a start, right? Every day is a start. And yeah, I think I found that I found you and others that I can talk to and kind of push myself forward. So that's all you can ask from yourself. It's just every day is a new day, and I'm going to keep on keeping on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Have the conversations with your students and have fun.
Yep.
This is meant to be fun. So, all right. With that, we wish you a wonderful school year. Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.